My name's Brian Hughes of Eatonfield Developments. We are the developers of the site, and one of the things that we hope we're going to bring to the community is obviously employment for people, and to try and tidy up this area from the industrial units that were here to a more acceptable retail units. The other thing is that by the work we've done, we have uncovered the archaeology, which will be fully recorded and available for people to gain access to. This should be out in about 6 months' time when everything is completed by Dyfed Archaeology. So there will be a lot of history here that people can delve into, even though unfortunately we do have to cover a lot of the lower stuff up again. We will have the main wall, which you see here, which will be exposed, and people will be able to see from the store car park.
Well, when did you first know about the full extent of the archaeology?
About 6 weeks ago when we started digging it. We always knew there was something there, but the extent of it was obviously a lot more than we ever anticipated.
And again, the size, is it comparable to anything you've seen before?
Yes, we have sort of come across this sort of stuff in the past. Very often when you get a brownfield site, you do find this sort of stuff on the sites.
And well, were you the first on any of the finds? I know there's been some iron finds, of course, and several furnaces. But,
No, the archaeologists found it before I was around, unfortunately.
What sort of developments are you typically part of?
Mainly housing. That's our biggest side, which we will be doing on a part of this site. There is 125 houses going to go on another part of this site. So that's our main development side.
Right, standing at the site of the former Ystalyfera Ironworks, 1838 to 1885. This one industry, the iron timbered works, give the impetus for the development of the whole town of Ystalyfera. 4,000 people employed here, and that led directly to the building of all the houses that created this community. It's important to keep every bit of this excavation, and I repeat, every bit of the excavation, we can use this for tourism and education purposes to promote Ystalyfera and tourism in the Swansea Valley. This site, linked with a Taw'r aqueduct, first aqueduct in the whole UK, constructed using hydraulic motor, and the nearby Ystalyfera Ironworks work closely with James Palmer Budd. Three very, very important sites together. This can help kickstart the regeneration of this upper Swansea Valley. And I hope the local authorities and the National Assembly government take recognisance of this.
Right, I'll chip in a bit. Well, I can ask you about yourself. So how long have you been a historian? They're all open questions.
I'm an amateur historian since I was about 12.
And
I'm now 68.
And how much of a surprise was this to you?
None. I mean, I've known about the site for 30 years, the masonry wall, the canal, the iron mining, the coal mining, the iron production, known about it for, say, 30 years. But it was a surprise to see the engine house that's been uncovered here. Absolutely incredible masonry work, and the sheer scale and size of this, it deserves protection in its own right.
What do we have here in total, just as an overview?
Well, we have the massive masonry wall behind us, which is the blast furnace charging wall with a canal above it. And this is where the raw materials, the coal, the iron or the limestone would have been brought to the top of the wall. In front of the wall stood 11 blast furnaces, and the materials from the barges to the top of the wall into the blast furnaces. And from there made iron and tin plate. And to the northern end of the site, which is behind me, this is the blast engine house, where the regenerative gas system was actually used.
And how does this link in with the history of the Swansea Valley? Because obviously there's a history of production of everything across
in
the last
1838, when this works was first established, the one blast furnace, there was no town of Ystalyfera, there was no village of Cwmgyrdd, there was no village of Ynysmeadow, there was no Trebanos. Pontardawe was a very small village of 30 houses or cottages. This enormous iron industry in the upper Swansea Valley. Ystalyfera and Esgedwin kick-started the industrial development of this valley, and it led to development of all the communities in the valley north of Morriston.
So how does this site compare with others around the country and even in this
There's
area?
much more here. Go to Neath Abbey where the remains are, the standing, 2 blast furnaces are standing and a few remnants of ruined, burnt out buildings. There's much more here with the masonry wall, with the blast furnace house and with the canal above it and this enormous slag bank just the other side of the river. There's so much here which can create a focal point for tourism.
Okay.
My name's Kate Hockley. I decided to come down this morning and visit the old Ystalyfera Ironworks. The archaeological investigations have shown that a lot has been uncovered, and the structure of the old ironworks, tin works, is beautifully constructed. The fact that it's probably the largest iron cum tin works in the world, it has been said. It's such a shame that it's going to be filled in and a tin pot supermarket's going to be put on top. I feel quite strongly about that. The significance for the village is that it's part of the heritage, not only village heritage but national heritage. And I'd go further to say, as it was the largest, probably the largest iron cum tin plate works in the world, it's of international significance. It would bring tourism to the area if we left it as it is. It's part of our future generations' heritage. It's of educational significance, and I think it would be a real shame should this be covered up for no one else to see. It's very different looking at a photo of it than visiting it physically. Thank you very much.
My name is Geoff Bryce. I live just across the roundabout from this site, so obviously I'm concerned about what's happening here. I'm not a supporter of superstores, but I don't think the planning can be objected to. However, what's been revealed here during the development shows the historic interest on the site, as a site which is of unique importance in the history of the development of ironworks. Techniques were developed here which were used for the next 150 years in the iron industry. So this is a site which must be retained for historic interest and in order to promote local self-confidence in the fact that we in this area of Ystalyfera can actually do things rather than just slide into depression.
But what have you found out about the site so far?
Well, what's coming to light here is that the documentation that's available doesn't give you any idea of the complexity of the brickwork, of the structures that were involved in the techniques of recycling the hot gases. This is, in fact, an early example of recycling and reusing waste materials. So the conservationists should be very proud of a site like this.
Especially, I guess it's associated with any ironworks, particularly nowadays, associated with pollution. Perhaps you could say, you can see with Talbot as an example, as a nearby example. So something like that is something that should be highlighted.
It is a good example. It would be an exaggeration to say that no waste was produced here, because in fact the whole of the valley floor here is constructed from blast furnace waste, which is another example of recycling. All the river banks, the channels of the rivers and so on, the structures of the roadways, walls, were all built from the blast furnace slag, which was used in the construction of these embankments.
How long have you been in the area?
Well, I've lived here all my life, so I'm stuck here.
So they're deliberately open questions. I've learned that from it. But
the main point here is what attitude we as locals take to this area, and whether we are going to accept passively decisions made by outsiders, whether it's a development firm or a council which is, to say the least, somewhat remote. The fact that it's come to this late stage, I think, is a condemnation of our local representation, which I believe has let us down by allowing this to get to a stage where we are going to be told it's too late to do anything. I personally don't think it's too late, and I hope everybody else in the area agrees with me.
Because has the site of the it certainly has to me. The size of the site been a complete surprise to you, given how little information you've had then?
Well, I knew that remains were covered up in the 1960s. I didn't know exactly what was here, and some of the material behind me, in fact, had been covered up long before I was born, and probably before the turn of the 20th century. So it was impossible for anybody to know what was here. But it was a fact that in the 60s material was covered up, but of course we didn't know exactly what.
Ted Purcell. Okay, it's wonderful to see this exposed for the first time in probably living memory. We've all, as locals, known of what was here before and the extent of this huge ironworks, but to see it exposed after all these years is a lovely sight. It's just a shame that it's going to be covered up and developed, but maybe in future generations people might have a chance of looking at it again. I hope so.
How much do you know about exactly how it's going to be covered up? Because that's been mentioned in the press, I know, but
it's had some press coverage and a little bit on television, but I think it deserves more coverage, and I think more people should become actively interested in it and learn from what we're seeing. And I just hope and pray that it's all documented thoroughly. I'd like to see some more excavations going on, to be honest.
It's not every day that this happens. You know, I mean, I was meant to be going into uni as normal today, and I've come up the valley instead of down the valley. So.
Well, for this area, it's a lifetime experience. It just doesn't happen. We've got a lot of derelict industry around, all being overtaken by the greenery, but to see something freshly exposed like this is remarkable.
Has the size of the site been a surprise to you as well?
The size of what's remained is a surprise to me. We all know that it was a very extensive ironworks, hugely important in its time.
So what questions would you like to ask the expert then?
Well, I'd like to know more about the history of the site. I haven't read very much on it. I did learn many years ago that there was a tunnel from the other side of the river that came right across under the road and underneath this works. I believe it was for drams, horse-drawn drams, to bring coal from mines across the way to the works here. But again, it's just maybe hearsay, and I don't really know anything about it. I'd like to know more.